Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast, where we will explore the cause and effect of just saying yes in your everyday life or in business. I will dig into topics that are not just stimulating, but will challenge you to be better in everything you do. The podcast is based on the simplicity of saying yes to opportunities you might encounter every single day. I'm your host, Jim Riley. Join me in my first series titled Blue Collar Redefined. All right. Well, welcome to the Answer is Yes podcast. This is episode number 10. I just can't believe how fast time flies when you're doing things that you enjoy doing, when you're training for something, when you're preparing for school or whatever it is, man. Just time seems to be going by so fast. I cannot believe that 4th of July is just around the corner. And I feel like we just launched an episode. Well, actually, we did today. Hey, if you didn't know, on Mondays, we are starting to launch Baja Sessions, which, as I mentioned in the last show, is really a recap of everything in Baja and what's happening with Baja United. You know, we were just starting to talk a little too much pre or post show about Baja United, and I just felt like it needed its own home. So if you're interested and you're into that kind of thing, then listen to the Baja Sessions. If you don't care and you just want to listen to the business stuff where the answer is yes, then stick around and hear what we have to say. But we just felt like it was time to add that. And I realized it was a short period of time. We're only 10 episodes in, and we just added another theme to the storyline. But you know what? People want to hear more about Baja. I have been very busy, super busy, training for this Spartan race that I've got coming up in September, which is, I don't know, about 14 weeks away. I talked about it a few weeks ago. I started my training. It's a 30-mile endurance race with, 60, 70 obstacles in the process. And the training is just kicking my butt. People ask me what I did this weekend. Well, I rode the bike for an hour on Saturday, and then I ran 6.5 miles, then recouped all day. And then yesterday, Sunday, I ran to the top of Mount Baldy and back, which was probably a dozen or so miles, but straight up. You know, the elevation climb was 4,000 plus and then straight back down. So I'm enjoying it. Don't get me wrong. I love being healthy. I love being flexible and aware and around for my kids. So all that good stuff. And I get up super early to knock the training out. So I might be a little sleep deprived here and there. But all that health stuff and staying healthy and eating right goes in line with today's guest. I'm really excited about the people that I'm interviewing and hearing their stories. I got to tell you that I benefit probably as much as you do from listening to these stories because I get to interview them and hear them firsthand, and then I get the pre and post interview with them and get all the nitty-gritty that just there isn't time to put on the show. So I want to thank you for listening because that gives me the strength to keep doing what I'm doing. And if you like this show, please share it with friends and family. It's easy. We're on iTunes. We are now on iHeartRadio, so pumped about that. And let's just keep this thing alive. It's not about me. It's about these guests and their ability to say yes. And really, it's about the message to our listeners. And there might just be somebody out there that this resonates with, and they needed to hear a piece of the message, whether that's from me, pre-post, or if it's from the guest. And I'm pretty sure it's going to be from the guest. These people are incredible with their stories. And today we have Doug Smith from True Nutrition, and I got to visit him at his office down in San Diego, and what an inspiring story. And if you are in the process of getting ready to write a business plan, stop doing what you're doing in whatever career choice and go all in on something, this is a message that you want to hear. So this is Doug Smith. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and I'll check in with you later. Hello, good morning, good afternoon. The Answer is Yes podcast is live and well this week, and I'm here at the offices of Doug Smith. I say offices because we just started going down that roadmap of everything that's in here. And the first thing that resonated with me when Doug walked in the room and I met him, he says, I have a fuck with Doug policy, so sorry if we get interrupted. So I'll apologize if we get interrupted, but I like the policy. I like the vibe around this office and everything that he's got going. So, Doug, how you doing, buddy?
Great. How are you?
quick intro. Met you this morning, and already like everything about you between what you're doing here and some of the sports you've done, the adventure side and all that. So I'm looking forward to hearing your story.
Yeah, appreciate it.
So with this podcast, it's all about saying yes to things that have happened in your life and really where you got started and adding value to the listener within that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the best way to start that with you is just maybe tell us a little bit about your early background so we have some type of foundation. Then we can jump into some of your career history if you like.
Yeah, definitely. So I think early background, I'm from the East Coast originally and came out to the West Coast, and I just never went home.
That happens to a lot of people.
Yeah, I love the East Coast. I appreciate it more now than I did, I think, growing up. However, you come out to California and there's so much opportunity. Not so much maybe from a work standpoint, from a play standpoint.
Yeah.
So just loved it. I fell in love with the attitude. I fell in love with just the people and really the activities here. So
yeah.
Went to school, went to Penn State, and literally graduated. And 2 days later, I drove out here. And the rest is kind of history.
So were you one of those guys that you went to school and you knew what you wanted to be, or you went to school to get your degree and then figure it out?
I still don't know what I want to be. I went to school for kinesiology. Actually, originally was for business management.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most boring thing in the world. It seemed just super obvious to me. Like, why is there a degree in this? It's make something for $1, market it for $1, and sell it for $5. It just seemed really easy. So I ended up getting into kinesiology, which is really kind of a biology of movement degree, and
mm-hmm.
chemistry and biology and whatnot. I loved it. I geeked on it. And I think I use a lot of what I learned in college today. However, I kind of always say, wish I didn't go to college. I wish I just started right after high school, but easy to say in retrospect.
Yeah, real quick, because it's that time of year, you have a lot of college students just getting out for their break, whether they just started finishing their first year or they're done now. I talk about skipping college personally and going back at some point to pick up a few classes here and there. But any advice for those students that maybe they're in the middle of college right now and they're not quite sure what they want to do? They've got a degree in something.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I would say, don't quit. The act of going to college and persevering for those 4 or 5 years, or some of us 6 years, the act of doing it is really important for you to learn stuff about yourself, to
mm-hmm.
persevere and to get through it, because it does get difficult. But I wouldn't get too sticky on, well, what am I going to do with this degree?
Yeah.
Majority of the time, now I don't know statistics on it, but I would say the majority of people that get a degree don't utilize that degree unless you're going to do something that's very set. I want to be an accountant. Obviously, you're going to learn how to count. But for myself, I'm kind of using what I'm using right now, today in my life, but not really.
Yeah.
Most of the stuff has been learned over time. So definitely don't get too, hung up on worrying about what you're going to do after college in regards to exactly what you're getting a degree in.
You just don't know. You're going to get out in life and find something.
Yeah, you don't know. And I also always say, the main reason why I'm a proponent of possibly not going to college is that college puts you in that proverbial box. It's a super safe box, and it almost, it definitely gets you a job.
Mm-hmm.
It'll get you a well-paying job. However, it may squash your ability to be creative and do something outside of a normal job. So I always kind of explain to people to be careful of that. Don't be afraid to say, well, I went to school for 4 years and I'm going to throw it all in the garbage can and do something different.
Yeah.
Do it if it feels right.
So you left school and hopped in your car and came west.
I did. I would have done it the day I graduated. However, I didn't have a car and I had to convince my father to loan me money to buy a car. So I bought the car. And it was around 10 a.m. I got it, and around 2 p.m. I started driving.
Literally. Dad, can I borrow money to buy a car? And I'm leaving, by the way.
Yeah, so I bought
Thanks for the loan.
Yeah, I bought myself a sweet Nissan Altima and had it for the next 10 years.
Wow. So what goes through your mind when you're heading west? I mean, what were you going to do when you got here? Did you have a job lined up?
Yeah, so actually my two cousins, they lived in Los Angeles. And the year prior when I was still in school, I'd never been out to California before. And my mother said, you did really well in school this year. I will buy you a plane ticket wherever you want to go. So I said, I want to go out to L.A. and visit my two cousins. So I went out there, and I wasn't there for 30 minutes. And I'm like, this is for me.
Yeah.
This is amazing. The weather was amazing, and the lifestyle just seemed really interesting. I landed on a Tuesday, and both of them were like, we're working, and they're at home with no shirts on their cell phones, doing things. I'm like, this is my type of work.
Sun was out, I'm sure.
100%. So they, like anybody was like, yeah, if you're interested in coming out, come out. I think family says that, and most times nobody does it.
Right,
but I literally graduated and came out. So
hey, guys, I'm coming.
that's pretty much what happened.
So you mentioned East Coast. Where did you go up? What city, what part of East Coast?
Outside of Philadelphia. I say Philadelphia on the West Coast because if I said Bucks County or Doylestown, people would be like, where's that? However, if I say I'm from Philadelphia back in Bucks County, they're like, you're not from Philly. You're from Bucks County.
Yeah.
So, yeah, in that vicinity in Pennsylvania.
So when you got out here, what did you start doing? How'd you make your living?
When I first got out here, I did everything from selling copy machines to selling car wash chemicals, to installing fitness equipment. And it was during the time that I was selling car wash chemicals where I literally was inside of a car wash adjusting chemicals and foam hitting me in the face, where I was like, there's got to be something better than this. And I started writing this business plan, True Protein, where basically it was a simple application where somebody could take different proteins and mix them at different percentages, and flavor it and sweeten it and basically package it any way they wanted. It was kind of a simple concept, and I started writing it. It took about a year and a half, and I had this epiphany. And this is one of these powerful moments for me. I remember I was in Huntington Beach, and I was driving down 11th Street, which I used to live on, and I was in the truck that the company provided to me that I had to deliver car wash chemicals in, and I just had this moment where I picked up my phone and I called my boss and I was like, that's it. I'm done. I quit. And I remember doing a U-turn. I came home and I remember thinking to myself, it was the most freeing moment. I'm like, I'm never going to work for somebody ever again. And I went home and everybody's got their resumes. And this is the time when, everybody had floppy disks of their resumes. And I ripped all my resumes up and I crumbled up my floppy disk and threw it in the trash. And I was like, I'm done. And then I consequently spent the next year and a half, 2 years, completely poor and broke and, begging from Peter to pay Paul. And, it was an interesting time, but grinded and kind of started it and did it.
I've learned more on this podcast of the most random jobs I've never heard of. So this is 2 in a row.
Yeah.
Selling car wash chemicals. I've never even thought about that, right?
Someone's got to sell them.
Somebody's got to sell them.
Someone's got to sell them. They come from somewhere.
Yeah. The other interesting thing, too, also the second podcast in a row, somebody that is successful down the road literally quit on the spot because they had an epiphany.
Yeah, that's what happened.
And so we let the cat out of the bag a little bit. True Nutrition, of course, that's where we're at today, and we're going to learn more about the company itself. Were you a workout junkie, or what made you think about nutrition in the middle of your car wash job?
Yeah, what's kind of funny is growing up, I was always into sports, but I was never into team sports. It was always skateboarding or riding my bike or hiking, or skiing was a big one for me. And I never really was into the team sport aspect. So I think 20, 30 years ago, those weren't considered sports.
Yeah.
Riding a bike
right.
wasn't a sport. Skateboarding wasn't a sport. Skiing wasn't necessarily, at least the skiing I was doing wasn't a sport. And I think when I got into college, I did the typical college thing. Everybody was drinking and partying. This is what you do when you're 18, 19 years old. And then that lasted about a year. And the very people that I met there that were kind of my drinking buddies and my party buddies, they were like, you should come to the gym with us. And, I was this skinny kid. I used to always say I look like a 2x4 with nibbles. It's a skinny kid that just was more intimidated because I'm like, wow, there's these meatheads at the gym and whatnot. And they were like, just come. And so I went and I felt safe because obviously they were there. And I think the first time I realized it was like this drug. I felt these endorphins, and I felt all these natural things that kind of happen when you go, you exert yourself like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really the hook. So I became this guy that was just kind of like, I don't care about nutrition, I'll just eat whatever, to feeling really good that first time where I got my first hit of that drug.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, I just started learning and learning and learning, changed my major, started learning about nutrition, biology, and chemistry, which has kind of taken me today.
Yeah.
And it's evolved over time, but I always say that the gym in a weird way it's less for my physical body and it's more for my